Hello, this is the RPG Crawler, and it's time once again for another Indie Game Friday, where each week I take a look at a different independent role-playing game. This week I'm going to take a look at a simplified action RPG/FPS, Tenebrous Dungeon. Developed and published by Apathis Software, it was released on Steam on February 28, 2019. Tenebrous Dungeon is a retro-styled FPS RPG hybrid with an early 90s aesthetic reminiscent of Wolfenstein and similar games of that era, but with character advancement through levels and equipment. The RPG advancement system may be a little on the light end for some, in fact, very much on the light end for some, but is certainly a little bit more in-depth than some of the stuff I've covered in this series and qualified as RPGs, so I'm going to cover it anyway. In terms of plot, the player is a knight sent by the King of Narmania to take down Bartholomew Black, Pretender King and Lord of the Tenebrous Highlands. All of this for a reward of Tenebrous Keep, the very land that the player is supposed to free up. As play proceeds, it becomes very clear that Bartholomew Black has allied with all manner of goblins and demons. When you start a new game, you may select a difficulty level, and then name your character. That's about as much character customization as you get at first, because you're immediately dropped into the dungeon. Once in the dungeon, you go through a brief control tutorial with movement keys in both modern WASD plus mouse options and old-school arrow key mouse options. The character's stats are really more like an old FPS screen, where you have a score based on the amount of gold that you acquire, a number of secrets in each level, ammo for your current ranged weapon, health that serves as your hit points, XP that accrues to gain levels, a number of skill points that can be used during a level up, a number of enemies remaining on the level, and a time to get through the level to gain a bonus. So far, basically just your standard FPS fare, but with a level up system. The character may have a ranged weapon and a melee weapon. Each does its particular range of damage, and while exploring you can uncover more weapons. There are main weapon types such as crossbows, bows, daggers, axes, etc., and some may come in additional varieties of materials that do more damage. Occasionally you may find special weapons, especially after a boss creature. You may only ever have one ranged weapon and one melee weapon at a time, so if you discover a new one, you'll have to decide whether to switch it out or not. Weapons that you don't need can either be left on the map screen or sacrificed for points to boost your score, or for experience points to earn towards your level. It should be noted that in order to fire a ranged weapon, you actually have to click twice, once to load it and then once to fire. Most of the time, if you have ammo loaded into a ranged weapon, you can't then also attack with a melee weapon. However, some ranged weapons such as crossbows and some melee weapons such as daggers and short swords are considered one-handed, so they let you use the ranged weapon and knock an arrow or such, and then use a melee attack while that is still prepared. You can also gain experience by killing enemies. Combat is done in real time just as your basic FPS-style combat, with enemies coming in a variety of types, some more melee-based, some with ranged attacks and spells, etc., etc. When you reach another level, you gain a skill point, which can be used through the pause menu to increase either your ranged attack, your melee attack, or your hit points. Simplistic, really, but allows you to adapt your character for whatever you find yourself primarily using during your run through the game. In the dungeon, aside from enemies and weapon upgrades, you'll also encounter various herbs and mushrooms, effectively short-duration power-ups that can modify your health or your damage with various weapon types for a time, as well as your overall speed. Often there are a few positive effects partially balanced with a minor penalty. There's various sorts of treasure that can boost your score, as well as food that will boost your health. You'll find barrels that you can break to potentially get more power-ups, food, and treasure, or the occasional enemy that pops out to attack you. Other points of interest are various letters, scrolls, plaques, and signs through which the storyline is revealed bit by bit. And there is a surprising bit of story and lore woven throughout the dungeon, but for those who enjoy just hacking and slashing through the dungeon, you shouldn't find that too burdensome. Each level may also contain various levers of different colors. When pulled open, they open all of the gates of that particular color. It is a throwback to the color-coded keys of FPSs of days gone by, but throwing the switch opens all of the matching gates immediately, so it can be mildly useful to watch the minimap, which can be brought up on screen, in cases where enemies may be released at an inopportune moment. Each level also has an exit zone, and reaching it while not under the influence of an herb or fungus allows you to pass into it and exit the level. There is a level summary that follows, and immediately after you are dropped into the next level. Each level has its own autosave at the start, and then may have additional single-use save books to save during the level. The game has 6 chapters overall, each of which may have multiple levels within it, terminating at a boss. In terms of graphics and sound, the game does its best to imitate the overall look and feel of an early FPS or dungeon crawler, with somewhat cartoonish hand-drawn graphics honestly looking relatively amateur, and pixelated billboard sprites, all done in a dungeon formed of right angles with a fixed perspective first-person camera. However, it is done in Unity, so occasionally you'll see effects that use some modern, true 3D elements, and I think that's alright. The music and the sound effects mimic that era too, for better or for worse. I admit that they're pretty suitable for the game, but they did wear on me after a while. I will freely state that this is not the sort of game that's going to appeal to everybody, but playing it definitely gave me the vibes of the old Heretic games. Very rough vibes, mind you, and I'll say that if you like that sort of game and can handle a fair amount of very, very rough edges, then this one actually may be worth picking up, especially if you can catch it on sale. And with that said, I'll leave it off there. This has been the RPG Crawler with Indie Game Friday Tenebrous Dungeon. I'll leave a link to the Steam page in the description below, as always. I will try to get more in-depth RPGs out in terms of reviews, but unfortunately selection's been pretty sparse on Steam from time to time, and occasionally I run into slow points like this. Anyway, if you like what you see, and remember to leave a like, comment if you got any feedback, and subscribe for more RPG content, both tabletop and computer. Until next time, take care and goodbye.